The 2025 LSU football roster is set. So who will the starters be? I've got the answers next. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Okay. So we know that A.J. Halsey has picked the Tigers, the safety from the University of Houston, picked LSU over Miami, Ole Miss, SMU. And with that, LSU has 18 portal additions, the number one transfer portal class in the country. Now the question becomes, okay, so how does it all sort itself out? Coming out of spring ball, now knowing you've added Bernard Gooden and also A.J. Halsey out of the portal in the spring portal window, who is going to start for LSU on both sides of the ball? It's a question I get asked a bunch, how it's all going to shake itself out. So I took a stab at it, and I figured I'd lay it out there for you today in early May, knowing we got a long way to go, right? It's May. They'll go through off-season, June workouts, ultimately get to fall camp at the beginning of August, do a month of fall camp, and start to get ready for the Clemson Tigers in the season opener. So who's going to be on the field week one against Clemson in that opening snap? All right, I'm going to put it out there for you, and I will throw the caveat. This is subject to change, okay? I'm telling you what I think it will be today, and I'll give you reasoning and explanation, but this is how I think it's going to work out based on what I know about who's coming back, what LSU did in the portal, conversations I've had, etc., what they've invested in this roster. All right, so here's how I think it'll go. Let's start on the offensive side, and then we'll go to the defensive side, and we'll talk some baseball. LSU plays Grambling on Tuesday. They're scheduled to, although the weather's awful. It may not get played, but I'll give you some thoughts on that. All right, we'll start with the obvious one, okay? So Garrett Nussmeier is going to be your starting quarterback. We'll start there. The only returning 4,000-yard passer in college football. Not sure if you saw, but Todd McShay has his way too early mock draft for 2026 out. He has Garrett Nussmeier, the number one pick to the New York Jets. There's a lot of reasons to love it. Nuss is right there with Cade Klubnik and Arch Manning as the front runners for the Heisman. And in large part, that's odds makers going, we're not getting beaten by an LSU quarterback again, right? It happened with Burrow. It happened with Daniels. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me three times, well, you're an idiot. So Joe Sloan's still the OC. You got all those freak show receivers, all the skill guys everywhere. The LSU offense should be awesome. Garrett Nussmeier, fifth-year senior, second-year starting quarterback. Of course, Nuss, the leading returning passer in all of college football. Nuss will be your starting quarterback, and Caden Durham, of course, will be your returning starter at running back. And it's interesting because when you look at the SEC leaders, Dylan Sampson led the SEC in rushing, was the offensive player of the year. He's off to the NFL. Jarquez Hunter was second in the league. He's off to the NFL. Quintravion Wisner from Texas, who rushed for 1,064 yards, returns, but he's got company in that backfield from a lot of injuries, but Wisner deserves a lot of respect. Rocket Sanders at South Carolina was fourth. He's gone. Nate Noel from Missouri was fifth. He's gone. Diego Pavia was sixth. How about that? The Vanderbilt quarterback was the sixth leading rusher in the SEC at just 800 yards, however. Jaquindon Jackson from Arkansas was seventh. He's gone. Le'Veon Moss from Texas A&M was eighth. Of course, the Walker product. Le'Veon Moss, unfortunately, had that devastating injury. So he had just 765 yards, but suffered that injury. So coming off of injury, how effective will he be will be interesting. Devon Booth from Mississippi State, 9. And then Caden Durham was 10. Remember, Durham didn't start the season as the leading rusher, as the starting running back for LSU. And when you look at the fact that Wisner, Pavia with an asterisk, Moss, Booth are back. Durham's the 5th leading returning rusher in the SEC. But suffice to say, he'll surpass Diego Pavia. And quite honestly, with a full season as the bell cow, I think Caden Durham has an awesome chance of being the leading rusher in the SEC in 2025. As for the offensive line, this was the biggest question throughout fall camp. Throughout spring. I keep making that mistake. My apologies. Throughout spring, we watched that rotation so much. My contention with the offensive line is going to be the same thing I told you when Brian Kelly was hired in 2022 and they brought in Jaden Daniels. Now, this was not popular at the time. With the benefit of hindsight, it seems obvious because we've seen what Jaden Daniels has gone on to do. But the overwhelming majority of LSU fans in 2022 wanted Miles Brennan to be the starting quarterback. And I said over and over again, you don't go bring in a 3-year starter from Arizona State who is stylistically so different from what you have for him to sit. They brought Jaden Daniels here knowing what they had in a young Garrett Nussmeier and a veteran Miles Brennan coming off of injury to know behind that offensive line, we probably need a mobile quarterback. So I said then, Daniels is going to be your starter. And you can roll your eyes at it now, but I was on an island with that one. As stupid as it sounds now, I was on an island with that one. I'm telling you, the same thing is true here with Josh Thompson and Braylon Moore. I know how the rotations went in spring ball. DJ Chester took a ton of snaps with the first team at center. Josh Thompson played right tackle, left guard. He was late to spring because of the quarter system at Northwestern, but you didn't bring in those two guys to sit. And the bottom line is DJ Chester is not a center. He was your weak link on the offensive line last year, not because he's a bad lineman, because he was playing out of position. And Paul Mabenga at left guard was also a liability when Garrett Dellinger got hurt. Those two guys were brought here to start, and they're going to. So I think this is how the offensive line goes, from left to right. Tyree Adams, your starting left tackle, replacing Will Campbell. Josh Thompson at left guard. Braylon Moore at center. I think DJ Chester, who started every game last year at center, moves to right guard, his natural spot, where he doesn't have to think. At 6'6", you don't have to worry about staying low, snapping the ball, finding the mic. Just blow the dude in front of you off the ball. And then Weston Davis, your right tackle. So left to right, Adams, Thompson, Moore, Chester, Davis. I think that's your starting offensive line against Clemson, and your starting tight end, Bauer Sharp, with an asterisk. One of the things we saw undeniably throughout spring was 2 tight end sets. It was so noticeable. Not only 2 tight end sets, but 2, 3, and 4 tight end sets in short yardage goal line, because they take Bo Bordelon, make him a tight end, and throw him out there along with Sharp, Trades Green, Donovan Green, and then Bordelon. So I think Sharp will be your traditional tight end. And I think Trades Green is also a starter as a flex, which means your 2 receivers are Aaron Anderson and Chris Hilton. Now, I get it. You added Nick Anderson. You added Berrien Brown. You've still got Xavier Thomas. All of those guys are going to play. But I think it's worth noting that when we were out there in spring, it was very obvious that they were giving the first reps to the veteran returning guys. They're all going to play. Berrien Brown, Nick Anderson, Xavier Thomas, Aaron Anderson, Chris Hilton, they're all going to play. Even the young guys are going to find their way out there. Kyle Parker made impact plays as a young guy before the injury. So I think they're all going to play. But if you ask me what's the first unit that goes out on the field against Clemson, I think that's it. Aaron Anderson, Chris Hilton, Trades Green, Bauer Sharp as your tight end, Green in a 2 tight end set, but Green sort of flexed out. So that's how I think the first offense will look. Now, I'm not making a prediction on who's going to be the leading receiver, pass catcher, yards, touchdown, all that sort of stuff, because that could change. Like, I could see a world where Aaron Anderson leads your team in receptions and Chris Hilton leads your team in receiving yards and Nick Anderson leads your team in receiving touchdowns. I could see a world where all of that is jumbled because they're all going to get a lot of targets. But I think that's going to be the first offense when LSU takes the field against Clemson on Labor Day weekend. Now, what about the defense? We'll get to that as we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. So, which players are going to show up at the biggest moments? How could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? Super easy to find out, and you can find it all out there. Now, what about a $200 bonus in bets? How much would that add to your excitement if your first $5 bet wins? My goodness, what are we talking about here? It makes every single game so much more exciting. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. It's that easy. Place your first $5 bet. If that bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Okay, so we've gone through the offense. Now let's look at the defense. And I think this is even going to be trickier because of all of the additions LSU made at every level of the defense in this transfer portal cycle. So, how might it look? Well, especially because I think we're going to see a lot of rotation, and you always see a lot of rotation on the defensive side either way. I think that's generally how that's going to play out. It's going to be hard to determine who the first snaps are going to belong to, but took a stab at it. Now, when we were out there in spring, when we looked at the defensive line, they usually ran in rotations. And so, for example, Jack Piber and the Florida transfer and Gabe Relaford were usually paired. And Patrick Payton and Jamari Butler, the transfers from Florida State and Nebraska, respectively, were paired together. So I'm just assuming that's going to hold. It may not, but I'm assuming that's how it's going to hold. So I think you will see on the first defensive snap, Pyburn and Relaford as your defensive ends. And then I think Jacoby and Guillory, your sixth-year senior, at one defensive tackle. And I do think that Gooden, the transfer from South Florida, will start at the other defensive tackle. Now, I think Sadir Mitchell plays a big role. I think Don McKinley, Ahmad Bro play really significant roles in this team. And honestly, if it wasn't Gooden, I'd pick Ahmad Bro to be the starter next to Guillory first snap of the game. And it might end up being Bro. But same thing as I was talking about with the transfer offensive lineman. You didn't bring a guy like Gooden here to sit. You brought him here because you had a need. He was the best available guy in the portal. Your defensive line coach wanted him. You went and got him. So Pyburn, Relaford at ends, Guillory, Gooden at tackle. At linebacker, this is pretty easy, assuming you're going to have a two linebacker set and then the star. Now, we know Harold Perkins is going to be your star, and we're all excited about what Perkins can be. And this is finally going to be Harold Perkins in his true, natural spot. We've talked about it since they made the decision, but thank God that they did. Harold Perkins, I get it. As a freshman, was an edge rusher, wanted to prove to NFL scouts he could be a three-down linebacker because that's going to make him more valuable. It didn't work. He's 220 pounds. He's not big enough to be an off-ball linebacker, shedding guards. And by the way, his best attributes are his speed, his athleticism on the perimeter to take angles and drop guys in space for a loss. It's not shedding 300-pound offensive linemen or lining up with your hand in the dirt on the edge, trying to feud with a 320-pound offensive tackle. That's not his strength. So Perkins at the star is the absolute best spot for him, which means Whit Weeks, we know, will be one starter at linebacker. And I believe Devon Keys will be the other. And Devon Keys was such an amazing riser late in the season. He finished with just 31 tackles, 1.5 TFLs. That was a sack. He had 3 pass breakups, 2 quarterback hurries, a fumble recovery, and an interception. Of course, the interception, huge play there in the bowl game. But I do believe that this coaching staff loves Devon Keys. He fits what Blake Baker wants to do. West Weeks is going to factor in prominently in this mix as well. But Whit Weeks, Devon Keys, I think you're starting linebackers, Harold Perkins at the star. So then it comes down to the secondary. And what's so interesting about the secondary is this was such a weakness a year ago, but there are no shortage of options now because of what you did in the portal and in the high school recruiting ranks. I'll start with safety and then go to corner because the safety to me is easy. Safety was your worst defensive position a year ago, bar none. If you're an everydayer, and shout out to our everydayers, you've heard me go through the numbers a ton. Be it statistics, be it Pro Football Focus numbers. The bottom line is safety was the weakest position on a bad defense a year ago. And your best guy, Sage Ryan, is now at Ole Miss. Major Burns is gone. Jordan Gilbert's coming off shoulder surgery and may end up winning a starting job. We'll see. But you didn't go sign to Marcus Cooley, who was an all-conference player at NC State, and A.J. Halsey, who was an all Big 12 player at Houston, to come in and sit. You brought those guys in because they're veteran players. They're Power 5 starters with skins on the wall. Maybe what happens is Deshaun Spears elevates his game and becomes a starter, or Javen Toviano. Maybe that's how it plays out. Maybe Joel Rogers blows up. More likely than not, though, what's going to happen is the guys who have been Power 5 starters for multiple years, who you brought in because of their talent, experience, skins on the wall, are going to win those jobs. So TaMarcus Cooley, A.J. Halsey, I think will be your starting safeties. And then at cornerback, Ashton Stamps as a returning starter, I pencil him in on one spot, in a large part because of the same reason that I pencil in Aaron Anderson and Chris Hilton at receiver. Being a third-year guy, a returning starter, a guy who's been good, is going to fill that spot. The other side is the bigger one. And if you go out and have the opportunity to watch this team, or if you went and watched that open spring scrimmage, it should be as obvious to you as it was to me when I watched the cornerbacks for the first time. When you look at Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech, it's just different. DJ Pickett's awesome, going to play a ton. He might even be on the field the first defensive series for LSU. Nickel, rotation, something. But the first snap, Mansour Delane is your best cornerback. It's very obvious. And when he transferred in, because LSU was so bad at safety a year ago, we had this conversation a lot about, could Delane potentially move back and play safety? No. He's not going to play safety because he's your best cornerback. And you have to have good cornerbacks. And maybe PJ Woodland and some of these young guys, Michael Turner, continue to grow and develop, but that doesn't change the fact, of course, DJ Pickett is a freak show, but it doesn't change the fact that Mansour Delane is your best cornerback. He is going to draw the assignment of guarding whoever the opponent's best receiver is. He's that good, especially in comparison to everything else you have right there. So Stamps, Delane, I think, become your starting cornerbacks to open it. So ends, Pybert and Relaford, tackles, Guillory and Gooden, linebackers, Weeks and Keys, safeties, Cooley and Halsey, Perkins at the star, and then Stamps and Mansour Delane as your starting cornerbacks. That's my prediction today on May the 6th, 2025, 4 months before the opener, but that's how I think it'll play out. We'll come back and check after the opener to see what I got right and what I got dead wrong. No doubt there'll be a little bit of both. Okay, y'all, it is Locked on LSU, your team everyday. Baseball Tigers back on the diamond against Grambling. We'll preview that for you next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. And if you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. They offer fast and easy hiring. Posting a job, it's free and simple. And within a day, you could have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com. Upwork.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. The LSU baseball Tigers are back at Alex Box Stadium on Tuesday, weather permitting. Tigers will host Grambling, which is not a great baseball team. Grambling is 21-23 on the season. LSU 38-11, number 3 in the country in D1 baseball, number 4 USA Today. They dropped down to number 6 in Baseball America. This has been a lopsided series. As a matter of fact, LSU's never lost to Grambling. They're 13-0 all time, with 13 games having been played in Baton Rouge, beginning with the first ever meeting between the two schools back in 2009. LSU beat Grambling that day 26-2 in 7 innings. The most recent outing was a year ago, April 30th, in the most recent outing between the teams. 26-2. That was the most recent meeting a year ago. So LSU, after a tough weekend against Texas A&M, where the bats really struggled to get going, will try to get the bats going against Grambling. And this is where LSU's been good. They've been very good in the midweek. They've been good in the non-conference. They've been good against lower-level SEC starters. The problem has largely come against premier frontline pitching. Grambling, for what it's worth, is hitting .285 as a team with 61 homers. That's notable. This is a Grambling team that has played 44 games. They have 61 homers in 44 games, averaging about a homer and a half per game. So they do have the power stroke. Now, this is the issue for Grambling. Their staff ERA, the cumulative ERA, is 9.09. That's atrocious. The opponent batting average against is .313. Opponents are hitting .313 against Grambling, and their staff ERA is 9.09. This reeks of a run rule opportunity. Trey Bridges is their best hitter, .331, 5 homers. Cameron Hill's hitting .301 with 11 homers. Nyan Hayes has 9 homers as well. But this is a dramatically overmatched team. And Grambling, so for whatever it's worth, has an RPI. I'm going to look at the live RPI as we head into this, but it's in the 200s. We talk so much about LSU's non-conference RPI at 209, which is just absolutely embarrassing and atrocious. But it's not going to help any going to play Grambling in this game. I mean, Grambling's, let's see, Grambling's, man, I'm still trying to find it. There it is. Grambling's RPI is 276. 276 out of 307. You're playing one of the worst teams in Division I baseball. It's not going to help your RPI. It's not going to matter a lick. What you want to go do is slug the ball around the yard and make sure you get some confidence for your pitchers as well. William Schmidt did not throw on the weekend. Likely means William Schmidt will be your starter against Grambling on Tuesday night. Hopefully he goes out there, shoves. You get a lot of guys some mound time. But remember, at this point of the season, you generally know who the guys are that you're going to count on. It's either about getting those guys mound time or just getting anybody the opportunity to get out there and throw a little bit, because by and large, if you're way down the line, this will be the last opportunity you have to throw, because guys that aren't going to make the travel roster won't be with LSU for the finale against South Carolina, and aren't going to play in the SEC tournament or in regional play when you got to pare down your roster for postseason. So this might be the last opportunity for a lot of those guys to get on the field this year before they go play summer ball. So just something to consider as LSU plays Grambling. But by and large, the bigger concern, getting toward the weekend against Arkansas, where you can hopefully win 2 games at home and lock up a national seed. Of course, we'll be talking about it right here on Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen every single day. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, as well, let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.